debate. We're looking at austerity, angst, and solutions for spurring growth when you're a European country that doesn't have much money in the coffers. With us to talk about it, Raphaël Nijinsky of the Force Ouvrière Trade Union Confederation, Olivier Lecomte of graduate school L'École Centrale, and Christian Stoffes, who chairs the Franco-German Council of Economic Analysis. Welcome back to all of you, gentlemen. Before the break, we've been speaking with Italian MEP Pino Arlacchi, who was sparing a thought for the Greeks. And again, we mentioned it in Athens, creditors from the IMF and EU back in town for crunch talks on Greece's looming debt default, and not exactly the welcome that they perhaps would have liked.
We just want to send one message to them, that they leave us alone to work, to live with dignity. This is the only thing we're asking from Europe and European leaders.
We heard, I want the reaction of Christian Stoffes on this. We heard in part one of our discussion, Pino Arlacchi mentioned how he thinks, rather than Europe breaking away, he fears that it's Northern Europe that's going to be dragged down into the maelstrom of all this moroseness and stagnation when it comes to growth and the such. You heard the reaction of that protester in Athens saying, this violent backlash saying, Europe is stealing our dignity. What can be done for politicians to sort of redress their image with those kinds of citizens?
One thing first, the scenario of splitting of the euro cannot be excluded, and I think it's better to raise the issue officially, publicly, to have a public debate on this. Because you understand that when you have austerity plans, generally you have a devaluation, and it helps you to give some support to growth. Greece should devalue by maybe 20-30%. This is what would have happened if we still were in the flexible exchange rate system before the euro.
And it's an open secret that that's possibly in the cards right now.
Yeah, splitting the euro, that means that you go back, Italy goes back to the lira, Greece goes back to the drachma, you have a 20%, 30% devaluation, and it certainly would help to solve the issue. So you cannot exclude this scenario. But I think one important result has been achieved in the recent months and years. All European nations, all public opinion, have had to test their attachment to the euro. They had to vote under various forms. And they voted for the euro. Even the Greeks have voted for the euro. When George Papandreou, the outgoing prime minister, proposed to have a referendum on the euro, the Greeks said, no, we don't want a referendum, because they know there is a big risk with a referendum. They said no. So even the Greeks are attached to the euro.
The Greek politicians?
No, the Greek public opinion. The public opinion said that. In Germany, which is a reverse situation, because in Germany you have powerful strengths who say we have to get out from the euro. They are putting us in a terrible situation. Angela Merkel is very courageous. And also in Germany, the test has been made. The Germans have proclaimed they are attached to the euro. So this is a very important achievement, especially the duality between Sarkozy and Merkel. Now Monti is joining, it will be a trio, has held very strongly. So this is a very important achievement, because now it is very difficult to get rid of that. Because you have accumulated such an effort, a collective effort in the recent years, it will be very difficult to split. So this is a good point for the euro. But it's true that in front of that, you have forces who want the dislocation of the euro. You have the speculators in London or in New York. They have the speculators, they are playing openly against the euro.
But what that protester in Athens is saying is that Europe is stealing the Greeks' dignity.
In Greece, you still have a very powerful communist party. It's a very strange thing. It is very powerful. You have also a bourgeoisie, which doesn't pay taxes. So we have very deep political struggle in Greece. And also the crisis in Greece is a revelator of that. But still, the Greek public opinion proclaims they are attached to the euro, because they understand that if Greece goes out, it will be a worse situation. They understand that.
All right, speaking about the issue of spurring growth, on Monday, he was in the company of the visiting French president, the head of Spain's newly elected government, promising to plow ahead with his plan to spur growth.
My government has already chosen its own way, which is the reduction of the public deficit, structural reforms for growth, labour reform, restructuring the economic system and reform of the public sector.
Olivier Lecomte, that's a pretty long laundry list there.
Yeah, but as you've heard, it's about the same recipe everywhere. In the UK, which is not in the euro, and also in Spain, in France, in Italy, everywhere. So that's why we've got to find some balance, because if everybody reduces spendings at the same time and with a strong impact on public demand, on consumer demand, then I think it could trigger at least a recession and probably something even stronger than that. That's why I think that, as I said earlier, the key issues is to restore confidence of the market in our will to address the question of deficits, to address the question of the debt, and also to find enough solidarity within the European Union, especially within the monetary union.
And when Pino Arlacchi talks about perhaps printing a bit more money, the level of the European Central Bank?
That's another question. The question of European quantitative easing is clearly a second question, which could be done today, I think, because, as I said, we went through this first step of improving our management of public spending and budgets. So now that we are going through towards this fiscal consolidation, I think that, yes, the ECB could say, I will support this by acting on the market if the markets don't understand that today they could buy sovereign bonds with more confidence, because the governments, various governments, and especially in Italy, have went in the right directions and are going in the right direction. The ECB could say, okay, I will support that, and I think it will have to be done at some point.
All right. In part one, Pino Arlacchi was mentioning how he said that the reforms so far are popular. That's not always been the case, though, in Italy. This Tuesday saw more disruption amid a wildcat strike by taxi drivers protesting against government plans to free up the sector and make more cabs available. Raphael Nijinsky, let me ask you.
I heard that in France as well a few months ago, but still.
But let me ask you, one thing that economists have said the world over is Europe has a very rigid labor law. We just heard a moment ago the new Spanish premier, Spain, a country where you have 40% youth unemployment. A lot of that put down to the fact that people who have a full-time job never ever give it up.
Well, I mean, if you take the example of Spain, I mean, it's one of the countries where, because of the crisis, seasonal work has increased a lot. Short-term contracts have already increased a lot without changing legislation. I mean, I agree with Mr. Lecomte. I mean, what Mr. Rajoy is proposing is something we've heard everywhere already. Spain is a country where one of the main origins of the debt is the private debt. And that means with a drastic consequence on the state incomes. I mean, that's one particularity of Spain. I'm not saying that it's not another country. So the answer is not necessarily cutting public spending, as Mr. Rajoy is saying. I think it's here against of bringing back confidence, having a real industrial policy, being less dependent on one or two sectors. I mean, I'm not a specialist of Spain, but I mean, being stuff now at the stage where Mr. Rajoy is saying, well, we're going to cut spendings, whereas I think Spain needs growth again.
He's also talking about increasing productivity, and the Italian premier, his provisions do include liberalizing to a certain degree the workforce.
I mean, we are in a crisis of liberalism, and we want to suggest have even more liberalism. I mean, that's simplistic as well. But I mean, it's a slogan. But I mean, it's, if you look at the Spanish labor market, I mean, you can't say it's not flexible. You have possibilities. As I say, seasonal work is maybe the most flexible possibility of work for any workers, and that has developed a lot in Spain. So I don't think the solution is in labor market issues, nor in public spendings, cutting public spending in Spain. I think there are other solutions, and here again, I think I agree. There's a problem of still having growth again. I mean, and different ways, having the state having more possibilities of acting, but you have to relaunch some industrial policies and not concentrate just on tourism maybe and on the building industry.
Christian Stoffels, in Germany, there is the issue of the fact that after reunification, labor law did change.
Germany has made a huge effort in the decade 1990s, after following the reunification, to absorb the East German economy. West Germany was about 65 million people, East Germany 17. It was outdated machinery, production, labor force was not very efficient, so it took a lot of effort. It took 10 years, and during those years there were huge public money transfers from the west to the east. Germany has achieved a lot of social reforms to give some flexibility to the labor market, to reduce the weight of social spendings.
Is giving flexibility to the labor market code for giving the unions less power?
Yes, it means. This is what it means. Of course, the unions were very strong in East Germany, but also in West Germany, and the labor unions have lost a lot of influence in the German economy.
Now, on the campaign trail in this country...
It's not that simple, I would say, but can I say, I mean,
sure.
There's of course one difference between the former West Germany and the former East Germany, is that in West Germany you've always have detailed collective agreements, whereas it's true that in East Germany, of course, you didn't have any, and you still have a difference now between the two parts of Germany, which a part where you have strong collective agreements and the other ones which you don't have. But the other affair, and that's a big difference in France, is that in Germany you have workers' representative in the administrative board of companies. That means that when a company wants to introduce some measures, even if they could be unpopular, because workers are fully informed, they would... it would be easier for them to accept measures which wouldn't be accepted in France because there is a low level of unionization. That's a reality, and there can be a certain level of distrust between the two parties. Because I think in Germany, you can say, of course, that in certain parts of Germany you have weaker collective agreement, but the Mitbestimmung is something that makes people understand maybe more the realities of the companies.
All right,
maybe in other countries.
Just to bring it to what's going on here in France, just so you know, on the campaign trail, the French president making it clear that France's labor law is something that he's going to make very much a campaign issue over the next, 97 days, as he's been taking aim at the 35-hour work week that was voted by the socialists a decade ago. He did so once again on Monday.
Who can really say that it's possible to raise people's purchasing power by promising them they will work less? Who has noticed other countries using this absurd measure of a 35-hour working week? Where in the world has such a choice been made? Whether it be on the left or the right, no one has made such a choice.
Aucun n'a fait un choix pareil.
Olivier Lecomte, is that a good selling point for the president on the campaign trail? Is it a smart move on his part?
It's pure politics.
But is it smart?
Of course you can diminish...
Does that resonate with voters?
I don't think so. Because it's an old, purely French issue, and people, I don't think, will believe that the source of all our problems is in this 35 hours week. Because if you listen to Sarkozy, I think Fukushima, the subprime crisis, everything is due to the 35 hours week. No, I think, and of course, you can improve purchasing power and reduce the number of hours worked if you improve productivity. That's why between the 19th century and today, we've gone from, 100 or 120 hours worked in a week to around 40. Now, I think the big issue, and I think the example of Germany was very interesting, because what happened inside Germany between the western part and the eastern part in the 90s is exactly what should be done today within Europe, between Northern Europe and Southern Europe, if we were really a unified political zone. Because it's true that Spain, Portugal, Greece, and even Italy had been regressing in terms of productivity, competitiveness over the last 10 years. So today they would need not only fiscal discipline, but also transfer in order to help them to regain this competitiveness. But as you can understand, I don't think we've reached in Europe a point where we can do that. We can make the German accept to share the efforts they've made over the last 20 years with Spaniards or Portugal people. And that's a real issue. And that's the reason why I think that the euro will undergo a very difficult time this year.
Before we go, Raphael Nijinsky, I know that on Wednesday, the labor confederations are meeting with the French president. Do you see a situation in the future where there can be more flexibility in the French labor market?
Well, it depends on what you mean by flexibility. I don't think that that will be sort of discussed in details tomorrow because, I mean, first of all, the agenda has been changing every second day because of the will of the president. I mean, it's what you said. I mean, our fear is, or what we see, is that there is not much money sort of in the state in the state budget. So I don't see really what the president can offer apart from electoral promises. What we want to talk is something, for instance, on which we agree with employers, is to develop temporary unemployment on something like similar to what exists in Germany, because in Germany it has been used much more extensively, I think more efficiently, and that's something, for instance, we want to discuss tomorrow. But obviously for the president, he wants to discuss other issues, such as sort of reducing working time and wages, which is exactly the opposite what we were saying, well, we need growth, we need to increase consumption, and it's not by doing these sort of things that you're going to go in that direction. So, frankly speaking, we don't expect much from tomorrow's meeting.
All right, there's the prediction. Expectations low there. Raphael Nijinsky, I want to thank you. I want to thank Christian Stoffels, and I also want to thank Olivier Lecomte for being with us. And we want to thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate. Stay with us. Coming up next, it's time for Business with Marcus Carlson.